What's up YouTube, Lambo here with a brand new episode of Free MMR Friday. Today I will teach you a very easy to execute build order against Protoss, an early game Ravager Ling all-in that should give you good chances against pretty much any Protoss player that you're gonna face on the ladder. So let's get straight to it. It starts off with a 13 Overlord, just as standard, and then we make more drones. We make 2 more drones, which is the norm, and then usually there's a hatch, but we make 1 more. It starts off with a gas pool hatch, so we open with a 17 gas. One of these 2 drones gets ready to become the gas, 17 gas, then 17 pool is the build order. And then the next is the 18 hatch. Now usually against Terran, from the build order guide that I did a couple of weeks ago, you rally this drone to become the hatchery, but against Protoss there's usually a probe on your side of the map. So what you do is when this drone is about halfway done to, let's say, 2/3, you send out a drone. And if this is blocked, you just take a forward third base. On this map, I think you can even take this base because it's closer to your opponent. It doesn't really matter. But make sure this hatchery goes down at 18 and at 300 minerals. Now, if your opponent goes to your main base to check for a 12 pool and he's not in position to block, just make it at your natural. But if the probe is anywhere close by, now, it wasn't the case here. I'm playing against Spirit's off-race, by the way, which is also Grandmaster Protoss. And I haven't told him what I'm going to do, so he's trying to figure it out himself. You can just take your natural, but it's not bad to take your third base either. So it's 18 hatch is the next part of the build order. Then we make 1 more drone, so we go up to 18 workers, to 18 supply. And then once the pool is done, we start a pair of Zerglings right away, and a Roachwarren. You can do this right away if there's no probe, but I wanted to make sure that the probe is actually leaving my base to start the Roachwarren. Now, if this probe was still around here, I would fake a queen, and I would actually finish it if I were to get 150 extra minerals. So the build order goes Roachwarren as soon as the probe leaves. So this should be, in the best case scenario, at 19 supply. You started before the queen even. But if the probe is still around here and it's scouting before the links are out, just delay the Roachwarren till the probe is out. Your Roach attack will be slightly delayed. But it's very important for your opponent to not know exactly what's up already. So then you start the queen right after. So we go Zergling, 1 pair of Lings, then Roachwarren, then queen. Then we start the Zergling speed. We can start it right at 100 minerals, but we stay with 3 in gas the entire time. It's very, very simple. You don't need to move the drones around whatsoever. You start the speed, then at 20 you start an Overlord. And then we start 1 more pair of Lings. Now, what we do with this pair of Zerglings, with the first pair of Zerglings, is we scout around to make sure the probe is not hidden somewhere here to go for a rescout. Especially against opponents that are master level plus, they could just try to hide their probe out here and then come back in to confirm if there's a Roachwarren or not. So scout with these Zerglings. Now at this point I see, okay, his probe is coming back. I am looking at my Overlord. So now I can go across with the Zerglings. I could theoretically run by if the Adept moves out. Do all of that kind of stuff. So after that pair of Zerglings, we wait at 21 supply for our Roachwarren to finish. And the moment it's done, first of all, the moment the queen spawns, obviously you inject. The moment the Roachwarren is done, we start 2 roaches in the main. 1 at the natural the moment it finishes and 1 more in the main. So we start 4 roaches right away. Now, very important, you want to start 5 roaches as soon as possible, but this larva here spawns first. I want you to make an Overlord from this larva here at 29 supply. I'm doing a slightly different version because I'm trying to optimize the build fully, but I realized that this just makes the build order a little bit harder. So for the sake of simplicity, because 1 extra pair of Zerglings being earlier on, just make the Overlord from the main base at 29 supply and then make the 5th roach down here. Because of the rush distance. Roaches are not the fastest unit, so it's better to make it from the natural. And after the 29 Overlord, all you need to do is make Zerglings. Now, since I tried to optimize this build as much as possible, I'm getting the earlier pairs of Lings, and then the later Overlord, and then I'm going to supply trick out the Ravager. But you don't need to do this. Your Overlord will spawn at this point, and that's completely fine. Now, rally your Roaches across. One of the strengths of this build is that your opponent knows it's gas pool hatch, so usually you cannot send the Adept across because speed is going to be done. Usually speed would be done already at this point, so you can't really scout anything with the Adept, which makes it so hard for Protoss to play. So against high-level Protosses, I really urge you to scout for that probe because that's the best chance your opponent has to confirm what's up. Usually the Adept should never be sent across. So yeah, it's basically just you make 5 roaches, and now we're flooding with Lings. We move 1 Ravager as early as possible, as early as we have the 75 gas. The Roach that is the most forward should be morphed into the Ravager. And then we just attack. The next Overlord should be around 40 supply. But all you have to do is basically make Lings. The Queen, obviously, after injecting from the main base, goes to natural and injects there for the rest of its life. Which hopefully isn't too long, because your plan is to end the game quickly. The reason you want to inject this hatchery is because it's closer to your opponent's base. And then the execution is also super simple. You just attack, you try to break the wall. The weakest part of the wall. So if there is not a full wall, you go for the unit, and then if there's a wall off with a pylon, you try to kill the pylon. If the wall looks like this, you go for the most exposed gateway. Let's say this would have been a full wall, and there would be a gateway behind us. I would try to kill this gateway, and then afterwards you need to check, are there already shield batteries done? Then it's most of the time the best thing to do is focus fire the shield batteries first, and then afterwards the next best thing is to focus fire the pylons. So that's exactly what's going to happen here. My opponent opened with a Stargate as early as possible and is chrono boosting out a Void Ray, but ever since the Void Ray build time got nerfed, it's not going to be out as this hits. So he's chroning it out, but it's not done just in time. So we kill the batteries first because he built them quite early since he scouted it with the Adept. We focus fire down these, and then we just run into his main. Now I'm supply blocked at this point because I didn't make the 40 Overlord, but I'm sure you guys can do better than me. If the Void Ray targets your Roaches, which is the most effective thing for the Void Ray to do, the moment the Roach goes into orange HP, you should morph it into a Ravager. Because Roaches have only 1 armor, and they are armored units, so the Void Ray that deals extra damage. But once they morph into the cocoons, they gain a lot of armor. You will see this here. So the Void Ray doesn't deal damage anymore to it. It only deals damage very slowly, so it will waste a lot of time from the Void Ray if it commits to it. And usually, if it doesn't commit, you just have a new, fresh, full HP Ravager from a low HP Roach. So it makes a lot of sense to morph extra Ravagers with the gas. Since we're gonna float gas anyways, that just naturally, because of the fact that we're just producing Zerglings at home. Don't just morph full HP Roaches to Ravagers because you will lose too much DPS for no reason. So just you're gonna float gas if there's no Void Ray, if there's nothing shooting down your Roaches. But if you have a half HP Roach, low HP Roach, you can morph it into a Ravager, and that's about it. You try to depower all the stuff that is in the front, and then you run into the main. You can depower the Stargate if it's in the main base. If not, you can also just run after the probes. Just try to kill the Protoss. Really, you can execute it pretty much like you want to. I think most of it is pretty obvious, and there's not much more to say. So now to the final part of this video, where I will give you guys a difficulty rating for this build order that you just saw, and also a couple of extra notes. I will give this build order a difficulty rating of 1.5 out of 5. It is the easiest build order that I've uploaded, the easiest Freemar Friday guide so far, simply because there isn't that much to remember. The games usually should be done by 4 minutes. It is super simple. You make 1 queen, you make 5 roaches, morph 1 Ravager, and then just flood Lings. The only reason I give it even 0.5 is because it's important to focus fire the correct buildings. But other than that, the execution is relatively simple. On top of it, you're safe against any form of early aggression from Protoss. So if they're cannon rushing you, you already have a fast gas pool. You can go for a Roach counter attack. You can also defend it just with early Zerglings. If they're proxy getting you, you also have a free win. It's just generally a good and easy build to do. Now, the last important thing to note is that it is up to the Protoss' defense if this build works or not. If the Protoss plays it perfectly, you will lose the game. But if your goal is to just gain MMR, I think it is the perfect build because it's easy to play, and I've seen Grandmaster players that lose to this. I've lost against this with my off-race, even though I theoretically know the perfect response. So it requires a very tight response. It is very easy to play, and you don't really need to learn anything else in the early game, since it is also super safe against any form of cannon rushes or proxy gate. So all in all, I think it's the perfect build order for this type of show. It is the first one that I wouldn't play as much myself in tournaments, because I think the absolute top level players have that down. But since this is not a show for top level players, but it's a show for casual players up to the Grandmaster level, not for the absolute. I'm not making the show for Cell or Rainer, is basically what I'm saying. I think it is a nice build to throw into this show, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Please let me know how successful this build is on the ladder, because I'm genuinely interested in hearing your results if you try this out at home. One last thing I wanted to note is that I have a second channel now called Lambo TV, where I upload more frequently than on my main channel, games with a lot of analytics and a deep dive into how to beat certain strategies. The last video I uploaded was how to beat Battlecruiser Cyclone openers. So if you're interested in any of that, if you have problems with any of that, you can go to my second channel and write in the comments if you want to see how to beat a certain style or strategy, and I can try to make a nice and quick little video about it. So yeah, go ahead and check that out. With that being said, that's it for me for today. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.